I also want to call on Dr. Hillel Goldberg, who is a longtime supporter of ELNet and is the founder of Leman Zion, for Zion's sake, an organization dedicated to addressing issues of concern to Jews and friends of Israel around the world. Dr. Goldberg, please.
Hello, Shalom. I'm Hillel Goldberg, and I would like to say to our man today who's going to speak to us, Dr. Blume, want to say herzlich willkommen and Baruch haba. And he is involved in something so great. It's also a matter of virus. It's the worst virus that I know of, and that's anti-Semitism, and he works against it. In the words of Lord Sachs, Rabbi Lord Sachs, that is a terrible virus. People have been affected by that for thousands of years. So Dr. Blume has a big job then. And I want to say we need to pray. I believe in prayer. We're talking with Jerusalem. We're talking with Israel. The word is prayer. I'll tell you my own, in brief moments only, my own experience of prayer answered. I was 9 years old when on the 11th November 1939, I heard that I was supposed to be executed, shot by the SS. That night came, and it was a murderous night for our family. I'll not say in more details, but I was a little boy of 9 years, and this trembling little boy was saved. He was unscathed in this situation. And think of this, today I'm about 90 years old, just a couple of months away from that. And I'm in Israel. I was a 9-year-old boy. I'm now meeting 90. Hashem, God, answered my prayer tenfolded. God answers prayer. And what we need to do in this terrible situation that has grasped the whole world is to lift up our eyes to the Lord, to the mountain, it says in the Bible, from where our help comes. Our help comes from the Lord who has made heaven and earth. So to help us is a little thing for him. I'm looking forward now to a great meeting with Dr. Blume, and I want to say, Hashem bless you. God bless you. That's the sense that comes from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem. Amen, amen.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goldberg, for those moving words. And now I call on Carson Ovens, our Executive Director of ELNet Germany, to begin the briefing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Dr. Goldberg. Let me just say a particular note. It is really a present, not only for everyone to see you every day alive, but also it's a present for ELNet, a gift for ELNet that you are for so many years now supporting our work here and encouraging us to continue. So thank you very much for all the support you give to the ELNet network. It really means a lot for us. And Larry, thank you for the nice introductory words. Just one sentence regarding the innovation program you mentioned. We are building with Startup Nation Central. I'm sure we will find also an additional format like this to explain in detail what we are building there. But obviously, as you all know, ELNet focuses on foreign and security policy to build bridges between Germany and the other European countries, in particular France, Poland, and the European Parliament. But for most, we are adding new levels, in particular now innovation, because that brings our countries together, in particular in crises like this as we have them now. But today we would like to focus on, as Dr. Goldberg called it, one of the oldest viruses of the world. We would like to focus on anti-Semitism, and the work Elnet is doing here is that we support officials like Dr. Michael Blume, who are engaged to combat and fight all forms of anti-Semitism. He is a religious researcher from Germany, and for a while now he is a special envoy to combat anti-Semitism in the federal state of Baden-Württemberg, which is in the far south of Germany. As a point of contact, he connects Jewish communities in Baden-Württemberg with policymakers on the parliamentary, but also on the municipality level. And he connects and advises educational institutions on the important work of fighting all forms of anti-Semitism.
Dear friends, thank you very much for the invitation, and especially Dr. Goldberg for his very moving words and blessings. I'm very moved, and of course, I would love to be with you in person, but on the other side, I see that it's very, very important to bring our work to the digital area. I will speak about it, that the virus that Dr. Goldberg mentioned is spreading especially via the internet. And so I thank Elnet that you are going online. I think this is the right way to go, the right way to do. And I'm very happy to have the chance to contribute to your important work. Why is that? My name was Michael Blume. I've been the first special commissioner or special envoy against anti-Semitism in Germany. In the meantime, we have one on the federal level, my colleague Dr. Klein, and in several other states. As with the United States, Germany is a federal state, so we have on the national level, on the federal level, responsibilities, but most of them actually, like education, like police, like schools, all the education, all this kind of thing is on the state level. And the state of Baden-Württemberg is about 11 million people. We have Porsche, Daimler, Bosch. We are a rather rich state, which also means we have a lot of immigration, not only from Eastern Europe, but also, for example, from Turkey. My wife, for example, her parents came from Turkey or from the Arab world, and so we have all that kind, that the worst kind of anti-Semitism in our state, and that was one of the things the Parliament asked me to take this position, and with the exception of one right-wing faction, all of the democratic parties in our state parliament nominated me, and so I'm working in the state government, and I'm reporting to our minister president. So why me? Of course, you had the thing, I'm a scholar in religious studies, vergleichende Religionswissenschaft, comparative religion, as it was formerly called. And so, of course, I had some knowledge about all these kind of things. And as I started my career in 2003, I was responsible at first to build dialogue with Muslim groups. And in 2005, we found a mass grave from the Nazi area, from these darkest times of our history. And the Jewish community, they asked me to help them to bridge the thing, to get into dialogue with everyone. And so I had been able to do work there and to bring people together to commemorate the people that had been killed, that had been murdered, actually. Nevertheless, at that time, everyone believed that anti-Semitism was a thing of the 20th century. For example, the chief rabbi from Israel at the time, Meir Lau, he spoke at the event, and he said that Germany had learned its lesson and that we returned to our former friendship. If you had asked me at that time if there would be a need for state commissioners or state envoys against anti-Semitism, or even that I would have to do this job, I wouldn't have believed it. At that time, we thought that it's something of the past. Yes, there were some Nazis, neo-Nazis, and there were some people from coming from other regions of the world, but we believed with education, with integration, we could do that. For example, in 2010, we made state treaty with the Jewish communities for the first time in history, so that they not only recognize, but that they have that they get a certain amount of money to rebuild, for example, synagogues and to restart Jewish life in our state. And anti-Semitism was not even mentioned in that. I was part of the team that negotiated it. And at that time in 2010, it was not seen as a threat. We built, for example, some synagogues without proper security because nobody believed that we would need it. And the first start that we realized something is happening, something ugly is happening, was in 2012, when we get a survey from all the European states. And for the first time, Jewish people from all the diverse states said, oh, there is a growth in anti-Semitism, especially in the internet. And for example, in Poland, it was reported it's right-wing and Christian fundamentalist. In Spain, it was left-wing BDS movement, boycott movement. And in Germany, it was right-wing and Muslim anti-Semitism. And so we saw, oh, something is happening here. And at that time, I was part of a presidential program with Germany and the state of Israel. And so we began to speak about this and to exchange ideas. What can we do? But when I really realized what's going on was when I had a program, when I led a humanitarian program in Iraq. In 2015, I led a program. I was the head of the special quota program. We evacuated 1,100 Yazidi women and children from Kurdistan, Iraq, to Germany. Among them, for example, Nadia Murad, who later won the Peace Nobel Prize, and we managed to get them out from the hands of Daesh and to bring them to safety. And I realized at that time in Iraq, speaking with all kinds of people, that at one side, the ideology of Daesh, of the so-called Islamic State, was purely anti-Semitic. They believed in a world conspiracy led by Jews and devil worshippers against their Islamic State. And so they were ready to kill everyone in their way. For example, the Yazidis, which is a religious minority in Kurdistan, Iraq, they were killed because they were accused of being devil worshippers and part of the Jewish world conspiracy. Imagine that. And so suddenly I stood again at mass graves, but at this time they were absolutely new. There were some weeks, some months, they were even shooting over there. And that was a moment when I nearly lost all hope that humankind is able to learn. But I regained posture and we were ready to bring the people there out. And you can imagine, especially the children, Dr. Goldberg remembered about being 9. The children want to live, and it was worth the fight to bring them out of there. What I learned there is that anti-Semitism is not something that's going away in the Arab world. There's many beliefs, for example, in the so-called protocols of the Elders of Zion, and that was brought by the German Nazis. Actually, Hitler was allied with at that time with the Mufti of Jerusalem, and there was even a fight in Baghdad, for example, between Nazi-friendly regime and Kurdish troops and other troops. The hate, the anti-Semitic hate, is especially in the Arab world, is very high, it's very strong. Also a little bit in the Turkish world and less in the Kurdish world. But for example, people told me, Dr. Blume, the so-called Islamic State, these are no Muslims. They are the Mossad. They are from Israel. And Dr. Blume, al-Baghdadi, the caliph of the so-called Islamic State, he's not actually a Muslim. He's a Jewish CIA agent. Shimon Elliot is in the internet, so it must be true. And so at the one side, you have the extremists espousing all kinds of anti-Semitic myths, but on the other side, it was also among, I would call, normal people, about people from religion, from politics, not all of them, but many of them. And so I came back to Germany with my team, and I said, we have to fight anti-Semitism. It's there. It's there again, and it's destroying the Arab world as it used to destroy Europe. And in March 2000, we returned in January 2016 with our team, 158 women and children in the last flight, my team members and me. And for a moment, I hoped that the hate would not follow us. But some weeks later, in March 2016, we had elections in our state parliament, and a new right-wing party entered our parliament. And among them was a doctor, not some, someone without education. And he espoused, he openly said that the protocols of the elders of Zion were right, that there is a Jewish conspiracy. And he accused all kinds of people, the media, the Democratic Party, Angela Merkel. He accused all of them of being part of the world Jewish conspiracy in the midst of our parliament. And so I began to speak out and to write books. One of them, for example, about Islam in crisis. What happened in the Islamic world? Why did this great civilization go down this way up to today? And the other about the resurgence of anti-Semitism, why it's there again. And so that was the reason the Jewish community, as the debate started in 2018, that we need a state invoice against anti-Semitism. They didn't ask me first, but they proposed me to the minister president and asked if he would nominate me. And they asked him if not someone from the Jewish community would like to do it. Why would they need a scholar from science? And they said, Michael, you are a Christian, you have a Muslim wife, you are a scientist. Maybe the people will listen to you. Maybe they won't say that you are only that you are oversensitive or that it's just about defending Israel. Maybe they believe you, and that's what I take as my mission. I say, for example, that whoever is espousing anti-Zionism today is espousing anti-Semitism. Someone not ready to accept the state of Israel is anti-Semitic. And I can say that, for example, that at the same time when Israel was formed, we had, for example, Pakistan was formed, or Myanmar, Burma was formed. And nobody is trying to eradicate Pakistan from the map because of the Kashmir conflict or something, or Myanmar because of the Rohingya. It's only against Israel, this hate. And so anti-Zionism, in my perspective, is just a variant of anti-Semitism. And there is no, people always try to say, oh, I like the Jews, but I don't like Israel, and then have to say, okay, if you like the Greeks, but you don't like Greece, then we have the same problem. That's not possible. Either you accept that there is a state of Israel, or you have to accept that I call you out as being anti-Semitic. Now we have the COVID virus, the coronavirus, and of course in January it started, and I knew what would happen. Of course, people would try to get an understanding of what's happening, and of course they would resort to their old conspiracy myths. Please note, I'm speaking about conspiracy myths, not theory, because these conspiracy talks are not scientific. These people are blaming in everything what's going on the Jews. And for example, in January of this year, they started to blame George Soros, a Jewish billionaire, that he had started the virus in Wuhan in order to destroy the world and to bless his Messiah. They believe for some years, right-wing and Muslim advocates, anti-Semites here in Germany, that George Soros is trying to bring immigration to Europe in order to destroy Europe and to bring about the last Rothschild Messianic age. And in the meantime, they are even blaming the Rothschilds Jews that they started the two world wars, the First and the Second World War, that were lost by the Nazis. So I have to say that although 90 to 95% of the German people at this time they react with courage and with reason, we have about 5 to 10% of the people that are again resorting to anti-Semitic myth. We have, for example, in Switzerland, Ivo Sasek, a founder of a Christian sect, who's espousing the myth of the coronavirus being Jewish conspiracy in order to kill all the people on the world. Just they want to have only 500 million people left, and all the others should be killed by the Jews so that they can claim world rulership. Imagine in Switzerland. And we have a lot of fights going on with people, for example, from Persian, from Iranian media, or Lebanon, Hezbollah, and the like, who are Turkey, who are also trying to bring this myth into the wider public. We even have some struggles within the European Union. For example, Hungary, the Hungarian government started a campaign against George Soros controlling the European Commission. And so we are having these fights, but at this time we're taking them, and I'm very glad to know that Elnet is at our side, and I want to thank you. And now I'm ready for discussion.
Well,
okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blume, and apologies to everyone. I was out for a second. Obviously, Berlin is not as digital as it should be, but this is also something where Germany and Israel are working on together, which brings me back to the innovation topic. But Dr. Blume, thank you very much for your impulse notes. It's fascinating to see what kind of impact you can have on the state government. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more, and I kindly ask everyone here on this call, if you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we will get back to them one after another. So Dr. Blume, just to start with, maybe you could elaborate again for a second how your actual work looks like on what kind of frequency do you give reports, for example, to the state parliament or to other policymakers?
Yes. So my main handle I can influence politics is giving reports to our state parliament. They asked me to do it every 4 years, and so the last year we did it, we gave a report to the state parliament with 76 recommendations, from school to police to justice to integration, so in all kinds of policy matters. And it was scheduled on the 15th of October, and so it was a week after the attack on the synagogue in Halle. And you can imagine, even those that had tried to downplay the resurgence of anti-Semitism were very alert. And so now I'm fighting to get all of these recommendations into policy. And for example, with the Jewish communities, we said that in next October, at the first year of the debate in the parliament, where all the important politicians spoke, we will do a benchmark. We will see what happened and what did not happen. I have a small team, and we are working very hard to educate the public, to work with media, to work with partners, to go into schools, and to do the podcast, which is the interest of the public is overwhelming. And of course, I have a lot of things like speaking to police officers, to judges, to politicians. Many of my things are not for the public. So, for example, people speak out. They are not afraid to pose difficult questions. And on the other side, then I try to educate the public. And so I think in Germany, it's good to fight anti-Semitism on the state level, on the federal level. And I hope in the future, even on the city level, that big cities might have colleagues so that they can help in the fight too. And I think, there's a lot of work to be done. So, okay. So then I see the questions. Should I just answer to them? Is that?
We'll pick them one after another, but let me maybe just build on what you said earlier on, as you mentioned, that anti-Zionism is actually anti-Semitism. So yes. Pascaline Wagemann actually had the question, how you also interact on this particular issue with the European colleagues, because obviously your experience on this matter could have also a strong impact on fighting anti-Semitism across Europe.
Yes, in fact, the World Jewish Congress, they invited me to speak in Romania, although normally it's only on the federal levels, but they invited me to be there. And so I had the chance to speak to colleagues from many other European states. In the meantime, for example, I'm having a discussion with the ambassador from Hungary and other people. And of course, for example, last week I've been in this Swiss television and spoke about it. So I'm trying to do whatever I can. I have the chance to do it via science. I can speak as a scientist. For example, concerning schools. And finally, I can just say that, I can research, for example, I was asked by our church, by a Protestant church, to speak about the topic. And so I can send it to other people and say, look, even our church is accepting or is debating that you can't be a friend of Jews and an enemy of Israel. So what's the problem with you accepting that? Even when even churches in Germany are accepting it. And so these are the things I'm trying to do. You see, I try to do it friendly, but very openly, because I think we've had this kind of hate far too long.
Okay, this is very interesting to hear, but maybe you could also comment how the resources your colleagues in other European nation states have. Are they similar to what special envoys like you in Germany have, or is there something that might be needed in addition?
Yeah, it's very, very different. For example, some of my colleagues are just, they are just, they were just given an office so that the state can say, the politics can say, oh, we are doing something, but they don't have any real power to make decisions. Others are very strong and are coping. And I think it's very important also that colleagues have an understanding of history and of religion. For example, that they can counter conspiracy myths against Jews, or that they know what the Rothschilds are, or that they know that they have read Elie Wiesel or other important people. So there are huge differences, and that's okay, because I think federalism and democracy it's also about benchmarking. It's also about competition. So they can see, for example, what's going on in Bavaria, what's going on in North Rhine-Westphalia, and what's going on in Baden-Württemberg. And of course, that's bringing things forward. And the same is happening on the European level, so that other European states are beginning to ask, why don't you have a state envoy against anti-Semitism? What's the matter with you? And I have a colleague on the European level, and she's very active in networking. And so you see, we have the public playing field, and we have the administrative and political playing field. And for this job, you have to love to do that.
Thank you very much. We have a question from the audience. I'd like to give the stage to Olli Sobaron for the next question. There you are.
Okay, sorry. Yes, hi. Thank you so much for your time and your talk. This is really quite interesting. I just was wondering, is there any reason that perhaps the rise in anti-Semitism in Germany and Europe has to do with, particularly in Germany, with the influx of more Israelis entering Berlin? I know it's completely ridiculous, but is that one of the factors contributing to the rise?
I can clearly say no. That's not a factor, because we also have the rise in anti-Semitism, for example, in Poland, our neighboring state. And in Poland, you have not a lot of immigrants from Israel, and you have not a lot of immigrants, for example, from Arab states. Nevertheless, anti-Semitism is on the rise. According to my opinion, it's a matter of the internet. That's because conspiracy myths, they are shared by the internet, and people cluster together and radicalize. In Baden-Württemberg, it's not the number of anti-Semitic people that's rising, But those people that tend toward anti-Semitism, they get more radical because they are now in bubbles, and they are every day they are feeding up their hate. I would say that you had saw the same with the Nazis at the start of the century. They used radio and film. The Nazis were very good at using new media at their time. And we see it in Germany that the new anti-Semite, they are trying to repeat that success. Yeah, if you see, for example, the Nazis, they did films like Judus against the Jews, or they ordered people to listen to radio talks of Hitler and Himmler. And now the new anti-Semites, they are building digital bubbles. And that's the thing that when they have more contact with real Jews, with people from Israel, then anti-Semitism and racism tends to decline. We have the highest levels of anti-Semitism and racism in the regions where there are the fewest migrants. And because if you are used to diversity, of course, then you learn to think about, if you have only heard about those Jews, then people are more ready to accept completely insane conspiracy myths.
Hmm. Well, we give the next question to Mr. Larry Hellring. I think what you just mentioned, Dr. Blume, really shows how important it is to have an impact on the educational system and to educate people also how to use modern technologies. But let's give Larry Hellring the floor, please. So I cannot hear him. If so, I just read out the question. So Larry Hellring asks if Dr. Blume, so if you could speak about the war crime trials going on in Germany now. Is it not about crimes against Jews, but the men charged would like to kill the Jews if they could?
Yes, I can talk about it because I've been asked to speak in these trials because I've been in Iraq, and so in June I will even go to court and to speak out about what Daesh did and what's their ideology. And of course, I'm getting threats and all this kind of thing, but I think it's very important to bring it to court. There is a thing in German law that, according to our law, we can also bring people to justice when they committed mass murder or genocide in other parts of the world. For example, we have had a successful trial against people from Rwanda, from Africa. And so a lot of people are seeing whether we can do it against Daesh, against the so-called Islamic State too. And I will go to court and I will confess about it. I did a Sachverständiger, we call it in German. I don't know, an expert, and I will speak out in this very trial. I think it's important to bring these people to justice. Although the Yazidis that will survive as a group, they are under severe pressure, and in the region, climate change is still going on. The people are losing their villages, they are losing their water, and of course, the big groups are now attacking the smaller groups. So I fear that we will see more violence in the years to come, and I think it's our duty to stand against any perpetrators and against any group that's committing genocide. Let me just point to something that Dr. Goldberg said. He quoted Jonathan Sachs, and I'm a great admirer actually of Jonathan Sachs. And Jonathan Sachs said once, anti-Semitism always starts with Jews, but it never ends with Jews. Mm. And that's what I tell people. In Germany, for example, the Nazis, they also killed the Sinti and Roma. And the anti-Semites of the so-called Islamic States, they also killed the Yazidis. So I would say to people, when they only fight anti-Semitism because of the Jews, then I say you don't understand the problem. You would have to fight against this kind of hate, even if there were no Jews in your region. We have to fight it for the sake of the world. And I think this trial in June in Frankfurt should be a step in doing exactly that. I will also talk about their anti-Semitic conspiracy myth. Yeah, wish me luck.
Well, all of us do. So thank you for answering that. And while Gabriel Goldberg gets ready for the next question, let me again kindly invite all of you here on this call to put your questions in the chat box and we'll pick them one after another. So Gabriel Goldberg, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Perhaps Dr. Blume already answered the question when he spoke about the radicalization of anti-Semites, but I'll pose it anyway. Perhaps he would like to add to what he already said. Is there actually an increase in the membership of the various anti-Semitic groups in Germany, be it the far right, Islamist groups, BDS groups, and conspiracist groups? Or is this situation currently just one of these groups, these anti-Semitic groups, grabbing at the next opportunity to accuse the Jews of another crime, spreading the COVID-19 infection?
Thank you very much. Actually, it's happening, both things are happening. So on the one side, education is working. The percentage of people believing in anti-Semitic conspiracy myths in Baden-Württemberg is not increasing, but those people, 10–15%, according to some surveys, they are getting more radical via the internet. And all kinds of anti-Semitic groups are trying to enlarge their membership and to bring these people in. What's happening even today, for example, in the last weeks and even today, is that a singer, Xavier Naidoo, he used to be a famous singer, and then he started to accuse the Rothschilds. He called them Rothschilds and the like. And now he even said that Jews and democratic people like Hillary Clinton from the United States, they are killing children, they are doing adrenochrome. So these are conspiracy myths we knew from QAnon, from the American world, and they are coming very quickly into the German groups, and so people are lured into these groups. And for example, I made a podcast about that and showed that this is exactly what happened in the 15th, 16th century after the book print came out, when there were myths about hacks, about women able to use magic, and the Jews killing children and extracting magical fluids from murdered children. And now you have it at the start of the 21st century again in the internet. And so, yes, I have to say these groups, some of them are very, very successful via Twitter, via Facebook, via Telegram. They are using the internet to enlarge their membership base. At the moment, the situation is stable on the political level because most of the people don't want it. We have a stable media system. We have a stable educational system. But for example, in our schools, unfortunately, the pedagogics on Holocaust, they are very outdated. And so we have to become better and we have to do more. But this won't stop the people spreading the hate via the internet. So that's the reason. And the last attacks we had, the last terrorist attacks we had in Halle, in Hanau, and in Celle. In Celle, for example, against a 15-year-old Iraqi boy and a Yazidi boy, a refugee, they were all done by so-called lone wolves, by people that were radicalized in the internet. And so that's what's making us a lot of headache.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blume. So the next question from Natalie Goodman actually builds on your experience, probably also as a religious researcher. So please, Natalie Goodman, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. I was just wondering how ELNet and others who are committed to, like Dr. Blume, combating all of these anti-Semitic tropes, especially surrounding COVID-19 and the idea of Jewish world dominance, how we can pull into the broader conversation, engage the imams and the priests throughout Europe to really strongly denounce these types of beliefs and extinguish them the minute they present themselves in a very effective and powerful way.
Yeah. Yes, actually, that's a thing we can do on the state level. And for example, in the last 2 weeks, I brought together people from the religious communities because, for example, there's those COVID-19 accusers. They said that our measures against the coronavirus, they were aimed at the middle of April in order that the Muslims can have their Ramadan. So they were actually linking anti-Jewish and anti-Muslim conspiracy myths and implying that this is the great part of the great replacement. And so I try to win church leaders, priests, and imams, and even, for example, Yazidi sheikhs and people from smaller religious groups to show them it's not only about the Jews. If we let this kind of talk happen, then it's also attacking you. And because that's what's happening, I can say, of course, I'm not able to reach out to everyone, and I don't want to help, for example, Salafist groups to use the topic of anti-Semitism to get some recognition. But with those religious communities that are ready to talk and ready to work with, I've even been invited into mosques to speak about the topic and about the topic of Islamic crisis, because of course many Muslims are also asking themselves what went wrong, what happened, and I can offer them answers and show them that conspiracy myths are damaging to their own kind of thing. For example, just to give one example. This week we had in Turkey, we had the 100th birthday of the Republic. The parliament has been founded on 23rd of April in 1920, Turkish parliament. And I spoke about that Kemal Atatürk is accused of being a secret Jew, a dönme, in right-wing and Islamist circles. And so I can even talk to people and show them anti-Semitism is even hurting the Turkish Republic. And so that's working on a state level, yeah. But I would love to work more with US colleagues, for example, and with Israeli colleagues. I was invited in May to speak at a university at the Ben-Gurion University in Israel, but at the moment we are not allowed to travel. But I hope we will do that.
We all hope for that for sure. The next question comes from our board member from Poland, Piotr Puchta. So please, Piotr, the stage is yours.
Yes, I would like to touch upon something that connects us, because Poland was mentioned here already a couple of times. So my question to Michael would be, given the extended developed contacts between various regions in Germany and Poland, do you see the possibility of extending cooperation in the field of combating anti-Semitism on a regional level? And if so, in your opinion, what could be the content of such cooperation?
Yes, I would think there is a great chance actually, because if you imagine here, for example, in Baden-Württemberg, we have a lot of Polish people, we have Hungarian people, we have Turkish people. So of course we could do a lot. And when I would be allowed to dream a little bit, I would love to have every state in Germany to be assigned, for example, 1 or 2 states or 1 or 2 languages, and to issue good materials in these languages to counter the digital attacks via, for example, from Poland, you know, Radio Maria, for example, which is even accusing the Pope of being part of being the Jewish conspiracy. And so I would love to do these kind of things with partners on the regional level. Or another example, I quote Elie Wiesel from Romania. He spoke to the German parliament, and he spoke to Angela Merkel and Barack Obama when they visited Buchenwald. And for example, I would love to have some cooperation between Romania and Germany based on the works of Elie Wiesel. So I think there, in every state, in every region, we could do something. We have a lot with France because we have a long tradition of having a youth exchange with France. For example, the Grace from in Gurs, there young Germans and young French people are going there together. But I would love to have that also with Poland, Romania, and Hungary. But I fear that we will have a lot of work for that. And of course, it's always a fight about money in politics. So, the people are telling me, first let's see after our teachers, and then you can see after the teachers in Eastern Europe. Yeah, but we are on it.
We have a quick question around technology. So, Dr. Blume, from Pascaline Wagemans, have you come across innovative technologies to fight anti-Semitism online?
Yeah, actually, I think the podcast seems to work, because a podcast is something some people like to listen, others like to read. So we are bringing it, they have the chance to hear it, to read it, to have a PDF document where they can do their own things about it. So what we are trying to do is to attack anti-Semitism, to counter anti-Semitism cross-media. So not only using one thing, like for example, only YouTube or only podcast, but to combine these kind of things. And actually what I'm trying to do is to do dozens of things to counter, for example, about the Khazars and about the Rothschild. And when people are going to Google and when they are looking out for their favorite conspiracy myth, they should have a chance to find the more interesting and real story instead of all this kind of hate. For example, we did something about what the singer Xavier Naidoo said about adrenochrome, and within 2 days we had more than 12,000 people listening to us, not to him. And my experience is that you can reach out to young people, you can reach them when people are new into anti-Semitism, you can stop it. It's far more difficult when people are 5, 10, 15 or 20 years in their conspiracy beliefs. Then it's very, very difficult to get them out of there. So I would advise to start early in life, because we even, for example, Baden-Württemberg, we had Heidegger. He was a famous philosopher. He was a teacher to Hannah Arendt. And although she approached him after the war, after everything was happened, he has not been able to get away from anti-Semitism as a professor in philosophy. And so I think it's important to start with the young people to help them not to get this poison, and therefore we need digital media.
Thank you very much. Very, very relevant remark also for our work. The last question comes from my dear French colleague, Dr. Arié Ben-Semoun, our director in Paris.
Thank you, Carsten. Dr. Blume, my question is very actual, as we are going to celebrate tomorrow and after tomorrow Yom HaZikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut. Although many European countries have adopted the definition of IRA against new form of anti-Semitism, how is that the European institution and many diplomats in the world and also many in Europe remain obsessed with the Palestinian question and practice a permanent policy of stigma, delegitimation, double standard, and demonization toward Israel? And when I remember what we said after the Second World War, never again, how can we live with this contradiction that we feel and we see really that all over the world, and mostly in Europe, we are fighting against the old anti-Semitism, and in another hand, we see that some policy are feeding the new hatred against the Jews and against Israel. How can we live with this contradiction? I think this the core of the problem that we have to face.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is, on the one side, the IRA definition. In my report I offered it to the parliament and to the government that they should accept it, and they did. So in Baden-Württemberg, it's part of our workings, and so the IRA definition, I think it's a very good one. On the other side, when I'm speaking about the topic of so-called Israel critics against Israel, I show people that it started long before the state of Israel exists. Adolf Hitler, for example, in his speech, Why We Are Antisemites, in the 1920s, at that time, 20 years before, more than 20 years before the state of Israel emerged, he already railed against it. He already said it will be a university of their world conspiracy, and we shouldn't accept it. The same on the left. You have it on the, they called it anti-Zionism, but for example, communist parties, or when you think about Stalin, it was okay to go to Birobidzhan at the Chinese border, but it was not okay for Jews to go to Israel. And so I tell people that anti-Zionism actually started long before the emergence of the state of Israel, and it's a variant of anti-Semitism. And so that's the reason you have this obsession with this state. Nobody wants to criticize Pakistan or China for the Uyghurs or something. And so that's, yeah, that's one of my main points. I advise that we should have more exchange. People should travel to Israel. We've had very positive experiences, for example, with schools. And not just that Germans go over there and work on their conscience and weep and Yad Vashem. That's important, but they should have a shared future. They should work with young Israelis. They should, for example, about technology. And I had a very positive experience with police officers, actually, because in every of our districts, now we have one person from the police responsible for the relations to the Jewish communities. And one of them told me, Dr. Blume, don't worry, we are looking at our Jews. And I was like, phew, that's not very, not very respectful. How can I change the perception of this police officer? And then I had the idea, and I went to the minister and I said, send them to Israel so that they see Jews carrying weapons, that they see police officers, that they realize the Jews are their colleagues. And when they came back, this group of police officers, it was great. And they took a rabbi with them, that we have a police rabbi, a kind of a police rabbi. And they said that now they understand the state of Israel, they understand about Judaism. And one of them told me that when now he's fighting crime and he's encountering anti-Semitism, he knows what he's about to do. And I think that's the way to go. Not only talking about Israel, but bringing people to Israel to show it. And then they should taste the food. They should speak with the people. They should see that it's not paradise, but it's a close friend and ally. And maybe in the future, it could even be a part of the European Union.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blume. You see, we are more or less at an hour now, but people are still listening and following your words. Earlier on, you mentioned, and that's more or less already my concluding remarks before I hand over to my dear colleague Lee. You mentioned how important it is to also combat anti-Semitism, not only on the federal level, but also on the state. And you even wished for combating anti-Semitism on the municipality level. So thank you very much. I think that also encourages us at ELNet to continue what we are doing, to build our strategy on all political levels, from the European Parliament down to the municipality level, because that is what is needed to bring together our countries and also to fight anti-Semitism.